Paint the Dancer. This episode gave birth to itself. A Mother Mary Russian doll, immaculate affair. With a pinch of original sin for good measure, of course. Jesus meets Frankenstein. Kali meets Teresa. All right. So a few days ago, after hosting our first virtual coffee club, God Help Me, I'm Awake, Molly, Rock, and I made our way down to the beach. I was still in an altered state from the powerful meeting, a foot in both worlds, and my arms full of beach toys, volleyball, towels, snacks, and bags. A Venice Beach Sherpa at your service. Disoriented and making my way awkwardly across the sand, I heard someone call my name. Turning, I see these two magical cats, Zoe and Arabella. An immediate electricity flowed through our words. Serendipity and supernatural sparks flew. Arabella and I were born at the same hospital in London and seemed to be barking up the same existential trees. So here we are. A few days later, unplanned and dancing between raindrops, answering the calls, breathing through the overwhelming flood of raw perception. And on that note, a flow. Scribbled in the back of novels, hidden in these passion fossils, watercolor grapes of wrath, sipping from a happy bottle. Sing-song ink drawn, sloppy by a coffee-stained awkward hand. I like it that way. Don't want to understand. I ask not to catch a question, simply to undress my essence. Dancing into deeper presence, blah, 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 empty sentence echoes when my head is second-guessing everything again. Ebb flow, web so sticky, hard to let go. Poetry or prose, I don't know. What's the tempo? Intention is to let go, fall asleep recording this. Gung-ho, then so low, magma in the morning drips instead of dew. Zoe, paint the dancer if you can. A brush instead of pen will bring us closer to the shadow friend. Today's episode is called Paint the Dancer. Dancer spelled like answer, DANSWER. Today is a special day for many reasons. I mean, every day is, but this is the first time that we have two guests. We have Zoe Rose painting with us live, and we have Arabella Thaïs with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
A few days ago, we ran into each other, as I mentioned in the intro, spontaneously. And yeah, immediately I just felt this gravity, this pull. And we're born in the same hospital, which I won't mention so the FBI can't, track
us down.
Yeah,
Good. Forward thinking. I like that.
But to begin, Arabella, you are a writer participating in the evolution of consciousness, a philosopher, a speaker, a cosmologist, educator, author, and entrepreneur. And I love your idea of beauty as truth. So, welcome. To begin, the spirit of this episode radiates a sense of ever-flowing movement, poetry in motion, the simultaneous phoenix and flame, a never-ending story, a liquid mirror river. It seems as humans we have a tendency to develop rigor mortis of the psyche, clinging to concepts, ideologies, identities, masks. We explore, investigate, search, but at a certain point we say enough, I've found it, and settle in for the paralysis of stagnation. I think a big reason for this is that it can be excruciating to exist consciously on the edge of known and unknown, to truly embody the euphoria and terror of being alive on earth without a clue of what's actually going on, knowing we will die at any moment, torn between animal bodies and spiritual wings. That's long-winded, but I wanted to kind of name that essence of this pursuit conversation where we're not looking for an answer per se, or at least I'm not, but we're painting the dancer. What is your relationship with navigating this dance of fluidity and form? How do you assure that there is an equal balance of butterflies and dynamite in your life?
Wow. What a profoundly beautiful questioning and invitation for discussion. So thank you for that, to be blessed with those words. Firstly, just to say that the beauty is truth, that concept, and specifically that quote is John Keats. Truth, beauty, beauty, truth. That is all you know on earth and all you need to know. So aesthetics and the study and the meaning of beauty is a huge part of my research, my way of being in the world, what provides meaning for me in my life, and the lens through which I experience reality. I suppose in many ways I resonate with Plato and Platonic thought. We can dive into that deeper,
Sure.
But this idea that the most essential truth with a capital T, at the heart of the cosmos, and we don't need to understand it, is beauty. And it's not an intellectual musing, although it can be mused upon. It is a somatic, felt, intuitive, heart-centered experience of awe, of the deep essence that belies all things and which reveals itself more acutely in certain things, whether it be a material object, a person, or a piece of art. And that's what art at its highest, most superlative level is the revelation of cosmic beauty. There was a lot embedded in the other things that you said. I think probably one of the most vital points is this notion of not finding a definitive answer. It's the process itself. It's the journey of becoming. I'm writing a book at the moment called Being and Becoming, which sort of speaks to that interface between, the still point and the dance and the movement, right? It is this oscillation between a very, very, very deep primordial reality, which is outside of space and time, and then this world of constant flux and change and mutability in which we inhabit, right? Which is the physical dimension, which is where we are. All things wither and perish, right? That's the fundamental substratum of our life, is that things change, we die. All things will die. And there will be a heat death of the universe at the end of space and time. That's the second law of thermodynamics. So, but that doesn't mean that's the fundamental nature of reality. I suggest there are many, many dimensions and orders, right? Orders of reality operating on different orders of time. And they present exotic matrices of reality that we can't really comprehend.
I love that.
It's
As we hear the sound of Zoe behind you painting, the soft sounds of the brush, it's perfect background. That's what you're hearing if you hear that, creation in motion. Thank you for that. Can you speak a little bit about poetics, poetry? And I believe the word you told me yesterday was poesis.
Correct.
Which when I Googled, I found nothing about it, which left me extra curious and intrigued.
Okay, cool. So I studied English literature at Bristol University. I did my master's at UCL also in English. And for me, this is a fundamentally poetic reality, right? It's not just that poetry is something that's written by poets and we read it. It is a living, breathing, cosmic poem that's unfolding, which is why when you read your poetry at the beginning, why is it that it moves me? What is it that is moved within me? It is that cosmic essence to which we all belong and to which we are all returning. That's, again, I'm reiterating what I've already said about art and aesthetics and beauty and so on. Poesis is, it's a Greek word. It literally means a state of continual creative emergence of bringing forth. So the act of, this is literal poesis happening right here. Zoe's painting. Zoe's like my best friend. Our relationship is very much founded on our creative synthesis, right? And my writing, her painting, our shared philosophical musings and the intersection, right, of different artistic mediums. So I love meeting musicians and talking with musicians and being around them because that's not my channel, music, but I respond to it very deeply. So yeah, poetry's been a huge part of my life, but not just poetry, prose also, but poetic prose, beautiful writing. Ever since I was a very, very little girl, I was incredibly precocious. I was reading all the time. It was sort of how I coped with reality. There was a certain amount of trauma that I grew up with, but also this materialist, reductionist, consumer capitalist paradigm is quite traumatic to grow up in case people haven't noticed that.
Hence the books there, hence me being a junkie of constant reading, and the layers that those pages open for me to see the levels and the dimensions here. That's also one of my safe spaces, and yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Okay, wait, so I was talking about poetry.
Yeah.
And
I
maybe
love the
what did I
idea
just
the
say?
universe is a poem happening and that type of thing. Poesis, Greek word.
Yes, this idea of poesis, I think how it applies to people's lives is insofar as they can re-originate themselves and they can tune into the poetry that lies within them. I've just remembered what my train of thought was, so I'm going to return to that, which is growing up in this society which is inherently ruptured. So we're divorced from that inner poetry. Yeah, our society doesn't cultivate creativity. It doesn't cultivate it in such a way that allows us to live, because you have to earn money, right? So that's been the artist issue for a long time, for many centuries, is how can they do that and earn money? We used to have patrons of the arts and so on and so forth, but really, certainly where I come from London, if you want to go into finance or whatever, yeah, you'll flourish within this paradigm. So something I think about as a philosopher and someone who wishes to participate in the evolution of human consciousness is how can we return to our sovereignty as creators, as cosmic creators? How many artists are out there? How much creative genius is out there, do you think, that's not being activated and potentiated? Because we are meant to, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, create a new reality. Because when you understand that this is a cosmic dream, dreaming itself into being in every single moment, which is the moment of poesis, then you realize that we can create heaven on earth. What we need is a shared vision to come together, like becoming lucid in a dream. If you wake up inside of a dream, you can create whatever you want in the dream, you can fly. It's the same here. We can get into the cosmology of that in a moment, but I'd love to hear.
Man, I'm a little tongue-tied.
Well, that's how I felt. I was like, oh God, there's so much. Anyway.
No,
so it's
exactly.
fine.
No, I'm tongue-tied. I'm hearing whispers from my entire life spoken through you of visions and ideas I've had. And like I mentioned to you yesterday, I'm tired. I can feel an exhaustion being 36 and having gone hard for a long time. Yeah, my nervous system, my physical body can't keep up with the same level of intensity that it used to. And so I think I've tucked away, or maybe I've just had to get a little bit more disciplined in how I approach what we were talking about, how much I want to participate. I mean, my prayer is put me in, coach. You know what I mean? As in like God being the coach of the game, like put me in, I want to play.
Yeah.
I've been trying to play for so long. That's why I went to the mental hospital. I was trying to play. I want to be of service. I want to tap into what I see, all these things. So yeah, again, just hearing you say that, I think puts me in this kind of awe space of like, wow. And it makes me realize again and again, and it's been happening more with this project, with the coffee club, with different things, truly not alone in this. Not only that, but meeting people of your caliber, like just people that feel like, holy moly, we must have made a decision in multiple universes long ago and took a dive, and now we're back. So I guess the tongue-tied is almost like a peaceful awe where I don't feel the need to speak. It's almost like being a parent and now your child, not to like take credit for your child's magic, but you're like, all right, let me just listen more. So to be continued on that. But But in the meantime, I just want to hear you talk about it. And I think some of the questions, might speak to that a
Can
bit.
I respond to just something you said,
Anything,
which I
of
think
course.
is really, there's a lot embedded within it, which is this idea of playing the game, yeah? Because I truly believe that this is an inherently ludic universe that comes from, ludo means I play in Latin, so it's a ludic universe. It's playful. We are playing. It is a game. It's a cosmic hologram. It's a cosmic hologram. Like what we perceive as being reality, yes, it's real insofar as we're here having this experience, but when you're inside of a dream, that's also real, isn't it? When you're inside of the dream, until you wake up and then you remember that was just a dream, right? So I would suggest that when we die, we will wake up and be like, oh, that was just a dream. Except when we die, it's not like we ascend to source. That's just the next level of the video game. This is a cosmos with many dimensions enfolded within and above and around each other. And it's hard to conceive of higher dimensions. But I would also suggest, and again, we can keep explicating this, that there are other beings, other intelligent life forms embedded within these dimensions, and indeed have had creative participation, in our reality. And that part of our journey here in playing the game, in participating, is to remember this information and to start creating more harmony, like a harmonic resonance between all the dimensions. So that's what I would suggest is going on. And that speaks to the fundamental why. Why does this universe exist? Now, I'm not trying to give people like, oh yeah, I'm the Godhead and I know the answers. Obviously not. Obviously not.
I think you already said it.
Right.
The answer.
Right.
To play.
Right. Right.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
No. I guess I'm speaking to the fact that we're not here to try and find definitive answers, but
Totally.
explore it. But I do think there are certain answers that can be verified mathematically, scientifically, as well as philosophically, that would deeply enrich people's lives to a way that could totally change and transform the world. It's not about finding the ultimate answer, because no one will ever know that while in material form. That much information our body simply couldn't we would explode, because it's information. But I do think part of the game, it's supposed to be fun, yeah, even when it's bloody hard. When you move through the challenge, you're like, oh yes, and it's the story of someone being born into a perfect family and inheriting a trust fund and then marrying the love of their life, and it's all perfect. That's great for them, but it's really quite a boring story. Like, do you want to watch a film about that? I don't. I want to watch the hero's journey. I want to watch The Lord of the Rings. I want to watch people go through initiations and overcome it and transcend and see how their character is refined in the overcoming. Because there's so much beauty in that, and it's way more thrilling.
Cosmological perception shifts are needed in order to, I think there's something about that. There's something about unsticking the mental perception of what we are, what we're supposed to do. That's why the dynamite keeps coming up. Like, how do you plant these dynamite sticks?
Truth bombs.
Truth bombs,
Truth
exactly.
Bombs. Got to be strategic as well with where you plant them.
Trickster.
Right.
Trickster. That's why poets and Allen Ginsberg's Howl lit something in me, and
It's got chills.
yeah, certain things. I love it. So last night, reading the novel that I wrote the intro in, Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami.
Oh, that's the one I read.
Yeah,
Has it got a cat in it?
It does have a cat.
That's the one I read.
The guy who speaks to cats.
That's the one I read.
See, don't spoil it for me.
Oh, no, I won't. It was a long time
ago.
ago.
Isn't it amazing?
I've
never read anything like
That's the only one. Yeah, it's very surreal.
Very surreal.
Have you read The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov? Oh, sorry, I can't forget his
but
name.
I can't wait to share recommendations.
You should
Please,
read that. Sorry, I
yes.
don't want to continue with what you were saying.
So I read a sentence in the book that you've read, which I think he's summarizing an idea from Goethe.
Love a bit Goethe.
Which I always want to say Goethe, right? The spelling looks like Goethe or Goethe, but it's Goethe.
I mean,
Goethe.
I don't know. You're American. It's okay. It's
shit. And what the sentence was, everything is a metaphor. So I was wondering, and it kind of speaks to what we're saying at the levels of the game, and truth is beauty, and Okay, so A, does that resonate with you? Do you
Yeah.
agree? And B,
Yeah.
if so, what do you think everything is a metaphor for?
Okay. It's funny because my research partner, who I'm conducting research with into time, like that's my thesis, and that's really what my life's work is to a large degree founded upon is temporality and the science of time. And she's already written a book and had it published called Nature's Metaphor. So she should really be answering this question. But as someone who studied literature and poetics, and to touch upon what we've already been discussing, right, about the inherent cosmic poetry of life, is that, I mean, look, metaphor is a poetic device, right? And we find truth within art because it's using these devices. It's not literal. It's dealing with the abstract. What is a metaphor? Well,
A symbol?
it's symbolic, exactly. If you say, I'm trying to think, can you give me an example of a metaphor that resonates with you? Because I'm trying to think of a good one.
What comes to mind, not to not answer that, but is like metaphor is representative of something. So I guess you're trying to, describe the feeling of a hot cup on your hand, but really bring you into that sensation, not just hot cup on your hand, like things like that. But it makes me think of how metaphors are often confused for the thing that they're representing,
Right.
which is an idea my dad likes to talk about, that is the same Buddha idea of Buddha pointing at the moon, which my friend Corey was just telling me recently. Buddha pointing at the moon, or maybe it's Bruce Lee and then Buddha, it doesn't matter, but the idea is like, he mentioned both, but it's like, don't confuse my finger with the moon. My dad says, don't confuse, signposts are pointing toward mystery. So in
Right.
this scenario,
So that's what
signposts are
symbol is.
metaphors. Don't confuse the signpost for the mystery they are pointing at.
And yet at the same time, the symbol can be that which it is pointing
Like
toward.
it has the essence in it.
Yeah.
And I took that quote that even you're a metaphor, even I'm a metaphor, AJ's a metaphor, Zoe's a metaphor, the earth is a metaphor, a wolf is a metaphor, a death is a metaphor, which when I forgot how you just phrased it, but it was something like, it's not real, or you said something
Talking
which
about it's about what's been coming up for me as you've been speaking. It's about the invisible beneath.
Communicating.
Sure, it's communicating the essence. I'm going to give you a quote from T.S. Eliot.
Please.
He said, genuine poetry communicates before it is understood. Okay, now I wrote a whole essay on this, and Four Quartets, his magnus opus, if you will, which is his final work, which is a meditation on time. My experience of that poetry, because it's notoriously very abstract and difficult to kind of comprehend with the intellectual mind, was that it communicated something very essential to me outside of language, ineffable, which I was then able to understand later, but it percolated up, right? Maurice Merleau-Ponty, the famous phenomenologist in the early 20th century, French philosopher, he said that knowledge is felt, comes back to the aesthetic experience. Aesthetics comes from aesthesis, which means to sense, to feel. We sense and feel truth, which is the invisible, which lies within metaphor, right? Before we can understand it with the intellectual mind. So I can say this is a table, and I could be talking in a very prosaic way, in a very practical, survival-based way, like don't spill the coffee that's on the table, right? I don't need to be poetic in that moment. We're dealing with the 3D physical dimension, yeah? But there will be other times I'm trying to describe ineffable, yet and so fundamental aspects of our existence, time, love, right? Yeah, these are fundamental to what it means to be human, and this is what makes life meaningful. And yet, if I ask you, and don't feel pressure to answer this because it's not something that really can be answered, or at least not very easily, what is time?
I think the word boundary comes up. I think of my acupuncture friend who's a brilliant man, Don Ha, saying life is a deadline to love. So I think of deadline, and I think of eternity in relation to time, whether it's a construct or an illusion. And I think that we've created time, it's created time in order to give us impetus and structure in the infinite, perhaps. And I think then we get tangled in time or the illusion of time.
Tangled in time.
You
Juicy.
know, and I think of spiders and a dream my father had of a giant spider as big as a house that, you know, wove him in a web and sucked him with this giant, like all his marrow. Is a horrifying dream. But the spider had a message saying, hey, storyteller boy, like you're my child because I'm storyteller. Be careful of the webs you spin because they will either entrap others or set them free potentially, and the same with you. So I think of metaphors. James Joyce, I believe, said something to the effect that there's two kinds of art, either pornographic or true or pure or whatever, and that anything that has an agenda of any sort, whether it's us saying that there needs to be a new paradigm, whether it's me saying, hey, this is what anything that's pushing all the way to political is pornographic. And that true art is meant to create a frame, is the way I understood it, around anything. Say it's a cup, say it's a bird, say it's your face. And that frame is meant to suspend that thing and have the viewer, the person experiencing it, be like, I have no idea what, just to see that thing and free you from the prison of definition and words that says, oh, that's a bird. Yeah, it's a bird, whatever. And then you stop thinking about it because the mind needs to table, cup, Arabella, AJ, microphone. And then you never say, like, what is this microphone? Like, there's this fuzzy, soft part here, you know, that kind of thing. So I think time, I think language, I think a lot of those systems were created by us in our many forms, perhaps, in order to have structure so we could actually play and not just get lost in the endless, you know, magic of the void, which we probably go back and forth between. Where I like in the book, there's some idea in a character saying, like, it's actually the guy who talks to cats, that he's comfortable being in the void, and in the void there's no need for distinction because everything is existing simultaneously and it's just there. So I think that that's kind of what it is, but then we forget, and then we get stuck, and then we get tangled in time and language and the things that were made to potentially create keys or wings or, you know, spaciousness in a weird way, or containment, which I think is the same thing in a funny paradoxical way, that boundaries create freedom. Hence marriage and fatherhood, and for me has unlocked more creative infinity in me. As before, when I could drink all night and date people and create whenever, I feel more infinite now. I think we just forget, and something, someone said something.
Wow. That was good. There was a lot there. I was sort of making notes. I love that the first word that you said in response to my very abstract, broad question was boundary. So I don't know how much you know about chaos theory. Okay. So this really evokes for me, because time is fractal, right? It's a fractal, and time is really, because we're in the physical dimension, and so there's matter here, and yet enfolded within every atom is a quantum reality outside of space and time. Time is literally fractally, like, rising up from this quantum foam, and there's a boundary point, at which point time dissolves, right? So there is a boundary where time... Kairos is...
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. Kairos literally means the perfect time, the opportune time. Time is very important.
Is that the moment when it bubbles up and disappears, or is that different?
No. Time, Kairos is a qualitative experience of time that speaks... It's intrinsically connected to, I guess, behavior, right, rather than time in and of itself. Does that make sense?
Which makes me think, and I meant, and sorry, I want to...
No, I've got it.
The observer changes the data is something my dad always said, and I think that's important to bring into the metaphor thing that we're desperately trying to communicate, but no matter how vivid, descriptive, creative I get, you're never going to have, I don't think, the exact experience. We might get close, and then I think of time, perhaps, and what you're saying in the Kairos is like you experience time differently, but time hasn't changed in that moment?
I think Kairos, let's just put Kairos to the side for the moment, because
That comes later in the questions.
we'll come, yeah. I just think that deserves its own explication, and it refers to something differently, I think, to what you're talking about. I mean, like your dad's just mentioned, well, you've just mentioned what, your dad speaks about, which is the observer effect. So now we're talking really about quantum mechanics and consciousness. And this is very important because, we create our reality. Quantum scientists, any mainstream scientist gets very, very triggered and very defensive and very, very resistant to when it comes to these this data, to these phenomena in quantum reality and in quantum science, because what's clearly demonstrated is that we live in a conscious mental universe that is affected by our consciousness, right? So we're participating in it. Now, okay, to go towards time, there's, what is objective time? Well, that's sort of, the ticking of the clock, right? Time that we measure. And then we have subjective time, which is time we experience, our felt experience of time. When you take psychedelics, times can slow right down. Dream time, different brain waves induce different experiences of time. So you've got delta brain waves, which are timeless, theta brain waves, which are, so in dreams, they really elongate time. Then you've got beta waves, alpha waves, and alpha, beta, gamma waves. And they each induce a very, very, very different experience of time based on the frequency. So time's also connected to frequency. Time is connected to entropy. This goes back to all things withering and perishing. So part of my argument around time is that the cosmos is a hyperdimensional, geometric crystal in a way, with these different orders of time. We live in 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time. Now, to explain what I mean with regarding higher dimensions, we're experiencing time right here, and we're experiencing entropic time, which is time, irreversible time, going from the past to the present to the future, and you can't unwind it. If you drop an egg on the floor and it cracks, you can't uncrack it. That is movement through time, and it is irreversible. So that's why mainstream scientists will say, and even non-mainstream scientists, what I'm saying now is paradigm shifting. There's not really anyone else saying this, but this is what I'm dedicating my life in part to helping people understand, is just because entropy is happening. So entropy is the dissipation of energy. It's the dissipation from hot to cold, which has happened from the Big Bang to the end of the universe. It's the dissipation of energy. We are operating at a slow burn. If you see us, if you look at a human body in infrared goggles, what is it? You can see our heat. That is infrared light. We are literally burning off heat and light from the beginning of the universe. However, if you understand that there are many other dimensions, bearing in mind that the universe is 96% unknown and only 4% matter, who's to say that time is linear there, right? So it's like our experience of linear time confers something specific about this material dimension, right? My suggestion also is that we experience linear time that is irreversible because it allows the game to unfold. Stops everything happening all at once. Because if we knew everything all at once, it wouldn't be the fun game that we're all embarking on, right? Does that make sense?
100%. We need to start our own show together someday, maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, and I also, to connect it back to beauty, time is intrinsically beautiful. As, when we see the passing of the seasons, why is it the poets write about the passing of the seasons? What is it about the passage of time? Marcel Proust in Search of Lost Time, right? It's me, when you gave me this really quite delicious little stevia ginger beer, when I drank it, I said, this reminds me of my childhood.
Nostalgia.
There's a particular taste in it that I can't define because it's consciousness, it's a sensory, it's taste. How can you define? You can't define conscious experience.
Scent.
You can't define scent unless you can only reference it to the experience with someone who's experienced something similar, or poetry.
There you go. That's the function of poetry.
Yeah, it is. It's to communicate the truth.
The ineffable.
Yes, through words. And actually, so I wrote this down. You spoke about words. Now, yes, words to a certain degree delimit and reduce something by putting a label on it. But I think this is also a reductive way of seeing language. Language is symbolic. Language has a shape, it has a texture, it has a flavor. Hence why what you read out at the beginning, why is it beautiful? The way you juxtapose words, the rhyme, the rhythm. Some words for me evoke the sense of velvet. Others are sticky. Others are hard like granite. This is I have kind of mild synesthesia when it comes to words. It's all within us. When people take enough psychedelics, you activate it, right? When Kandinsky painted paintings, he also composed musical scores. I mean, for instance, take a look at what Zoe's painting. What does it evoke in you? What feelings does it evoke in you?
Right now, it's like bodies for me. I see like these kind of beings and this moon in the white space, and it evokes like soft, evolving, growing, dancing safety of fairy tale lands, Waldorf parallel universes, potential dream, nothing too harsh, nothing too solid, nothing too defined. It looks like there's not that you're asking the specifics, but a woman with her arms open on her knees in the front, perhaps.
Sure, I see that as well, yeah.
Yeah, all this kind of flow and dream no, but I see man, I could listen to you talk, and I'm honored to. It's a trip to be here with you. Really, I'm tongue-tied for real.
Well, you know how we met was there was such a synchronicity, and I think it really speaks to the acceleration of human consciousness that is occurring right now on the planet.
Oof.
Yeah, this is what I want people to understand: is that we live at the Kairos moment.
I feel it right now. I feel it right now.
We live at the Kairos time. So something I'm studying in my PhD as well as archetypal astrology. People need to understand that astrology is science. It's not woo-woo. I mean, do you know what I mean? So much profundity and truth gets dismissed as woo-woo because if we actually change the paradigm and had a new cosmogony, and a cosmogony means like a cosmic genesis story that we can all get behind, guess what? You transcend the religion science dichotomy. Guess what? We're one humanity. We might become one humanity.
I call it the reverse Tower of Babel, because the Tower of Babel story, that in my understanding, is we all spoke one language at one point, and we were building a tower to the heavens, and it was working because we all were in tune. And then God or gods were like, yo, y'all can't come up here. Chill. Boom. Now you all don't understand each other, and that's what happened. So to me, it's the reverse Tower of Babel through listening, through collaboration. That's even better. Inverse. See,
that's flip. That's sort of you turn it inside out.
I love it. I love it. And brick by brick, or however we do this thing. But yeah, I love that. And I feel Michael Meade is somebody who, when I listen to him, his weaving of different myths that he's a student of, a lot of African or indigenous or Celtic or all of that, his cosmologies that he was presenting that are others into this tapestry. Like the rug he talks about with all the insects that he bought at a flea market one time, and there's bugs woven into the thing, and for him that's a metaphor of all these different things. But I love how expansive his talks and work feels for me, that I feel there's room for everyone, and there's space for everyone, and there's examples and there's nothing so finite and limiting. So I think it's happening, and I think it's already here. He says people don't need to rewrite myths. I like to disagree with that for fun, more just because I think it's fun to, channel new stories. But I agree in the essence that maybe the myths are always similar, like the hero with 1,000 faces. But anyway, that's a side note. In the order of us having boundaries, wanting to create music, I want to go to the next question with your permission, if it's not
Please
cutting
do.
anything off. And
No, not at all. That was a very good point, very good place to sort of move forward,
And I hope that this continues. So in that vein, both of us were born in the same hospital, as we've said. Both of us have eerily similar visions and dreams of the world, I would say. Like I said, I'm tongue-tied listening because a lot of what you're saying, in a different way, in a much more intelligent, well, really, though, I'm saying...
It's academic. No, it's just more academic.
Yeah, but you're very soulful and creative. So yeah, anyway, different perspective, but same essence, which is why I'm stunned. so we have that. We both have had experiences with psychosis. What is it like being you, being in your skin, holding all of the electricity surging through your heart and mind? How do you continue when I know from my experience, being as alive as you are is not an easy task?
No, it's not. Thank you. That's a really, really deep and beautiful question. And thank you for the invitation to explore that. I don't think I've had full-blown. In fact, I know I haven't had full-blown psychosis.
Sorry, I didn't know how to say it.
No. It's okay because a family, like my brother, I'm just going to say it, there's no shame around it,
Yeah.
has schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So like some of my earliest memories were seeing him psychotic in deep psychosis. So that's what psychosis is. So I haven't been there, but I do have bipolar. So I have also danced with madness.
Like I had a manic episode which
Right.
landed me. I don't know if you've had that.
Not
but
mania.
Yeah, I had a manic episode.
Not mania.
Yeah.
So, but I know like it's I'll give the listeners the quote that I shared with you the other day from Joseph Campbell. The psychotic drowns in the same waters that the mystic swims in with delight. So, you know, my brother is a shaman. He's one of the most sensitive, enlightened, beautiful, open people I've ever met. And I know that he is perceiving and seeing and feeling things in the field that's out there, but it's almost like the channel can't be closed and there's some sort of negative inflection that occurs which filters information in a way that's based on fear. And I say this is very important, and it's good to talk about schizophrenia just for a moment because it's the least understood mental condition. We're in Venice Beach right now. I come from London, okay, yeah, it has its own problems. I am appalled to see what I see here, which is the shadow underbelly of a society that's broken and that is completely bifurcated, where you have people who are billionaires and then people who are living on the street and who are psychotic. They're psychotic, you know? And it's like, this is it, that's schism, because schizophrenia literally means broken mind. Schism, schizoid. It's a broken society. It's a broken reality. How do we mend this? Yeah. And bipolar and schizophrenia are cousins of each other. I see bipolar, like my experience of it, you know, and I spent many years of my life wanting to die, going to bed in the evening and just praying that I wouldn't wake up in the morning because this experience of reality was so unbearably painful. The existential anguish that I felt for so long was so unbearable and no one understood, right? And I felt lost and alone and alienated and confused. And the only thing that kept me alive really was the hope that one day I would love and be loved in return. And beauty. The experience of beauty. When I looked up at the moon and the starry night sky, I thought there is something there. And it whispered to my soul. And that's what kept me alive. And it was an unheard music. T.S. Eliot speaks of the unheard music and its time. I heard it. I heard this cosmic symphony beneath the surface singing to me to keep on. Yeah, and that's why I stayed alive, because when I read Virginia Woolf, and by the way, she killed herself. She had bipolar. She couldn't take it by the end. She couldn't take it. She felt and saw and knew too much in a society that didn't, you know, I mean, back then it was unbelievably repressed and suppressed. But when you know, and I do advocate her writing, she's also quite a challenging writer. But what I love about her, she's not conveying a narrative. It's not pornographic, right? To use James Joyce's vivid kind of terminology. It's not based on communicating a story. It's the sheer beauty of words themselves and the experience of consciousness in all of its mystery and tremendous beauty. So bipolar for me is a gift and a curse. It's allowed me to feel very deeply. I know what it is to feel ecstasy to the point where I can still see the interconnectedness of all things. I've had mathematical theorems downloaded. I've had many Gnostic mystical experiences that are hard to communicate, where I've remembered past lives in different space-time dimensions. I've also bashed my head against the wall to knock myself out and cut my arm up and starved myself and taken drugs just to get out of bed.
Sounds about right. I've had my complete parallel versions of all of that, literally all of that. Last night, I wrote something that I wanted to share. Well, this morning I wrote this for this new project I'm working on with the guy who did that flag that says nowhere right there.
Cool.
Really cool cat named Gulliver.
That's an unusual name.
Right? Now here, nowhere, now here. So we're working on a project. He resonates with the coffee club, and that's like smoke signals. I think metaphors are smoke signals too. Like a fire on the mountain. So he put up his fire on his mountain, and now we're talking, and had this idea that we embarked on to write I write like this thing of the day, and then I send it to him, and he's going to make a piece with it, and then we're going to post like every other day this thing. So the first one came to me last night laying in bed. I had a bit of insomnia. I was super exhausted. I passed out on the couch with Molly, and then going into bed, I was like, I got to take Rock to school. I have to get up early, go to the gym. I have an episode I'm very excited about. Don't get insomnia. Started to get insomnia. And this is what I wrote. And I just wanted to share, and because I feel much more evolved in my understanding of my whatever I am.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed bipolar, diagnosed not bipolar. Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I have a sensitive psyche.
Yeah. That's what it is anyway.
Yeah. An antenna. So, but I just said here now, nowhere, right? That's nowhere. So it just says here now, can't sleep, pillow soft, mind aflame, the unbearable pressure of consciousness. God help me, I'm awake. That's it. I mean, I just was feeling that. And I think it's an ongoing squirming that can occur. I think it is perfectly said as a blessing and a curse. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but shout out to you for wielding it. I feel such great peace being here, hearing you. Shout out to all of us. Shout out to everyone. We're doing it. And I do pray for some sort of nap after this incarnation. I hope there's like a bliss tank that you get to go to.
You do for sure.
Okay, good. A little reset. So as cats who deal with said things, whether it might be a mood swing, sensitivities, whatever they may come in from the highs to the lows.
Yeah.
What would be, if you have one, an eye of the storm? Not a high, not a low, that perfect in between. Maybe it's a Kairos kind of thing, outside of time, panther-like calm, relaxed, poised, humming at a Buddha wavelength. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I'm very thankful to say that I spend most of my life these days on that vibration through a lot of deep trauma work I've done to alchemize and transfigure the pain, so I can resonate on a particular frequency that's more in alignment. It happens for me, like, you realize that after I met you on the beach, and Zoe can testify to this, I burst into tears with gratitude. And I said to Zoe, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening. Right? Because my journey was so hard for so long. I was so alone. And I dared to dream big dreams, no matter what this fire burned in my belly. And to be in that moment when you're like, holy fuck, it's happening. The stuff that I've been dreaming about, the alignment, the synchronicities, the support, the ease, the flow. Yeah, when ideas come to you like manna from a different dimension, that's what it feels like for me. It's like my mind begins to purr like a cat. It's like honey dripping down through my mind, out my hand. It's erotic. It's orgasmic. I've had orgasms in the British Library, I kid you not. Wow. And it's not like, oh, it's sexual. We have such a narrow, limited understanding of what eros is. It's a primary cause. It's the primary cause. It creates... It is the fundamental substance of creation. It's the desire to make things happen, to evolve, to move, to create. What is sex if not the ultimate energy of creation? Whether or not you have a baby, you're dabbling with that energy, right? It's the same. So when I create art, and I know, Zoe and I both being women, I feel it with her a lot. And it's not, again, it's not sexual. It's this just delicious, sapphic energy that is like nectar. It's like cosmic nectar. Yeah, that's what it feels like and looks like for me when I'm in flow, when I'm creating, and when I'm having conversations like this. I feel it now. It's just like,
I feel it now. Yeah.
everything is in perfect alignment. I am living what I came on this earth to do. I am fulfilling the fucking mission, mate.
Let's go. It's that hummingbird dewdrop nectar IV drip from the angel nurse. Apparently, my dad,
hot cosmic nurse.
my dad goes down to the playground near the hospital, which I won't mention, but it's a special hospital, right? It's like a kind of unique spot where we were born. We won't.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Apparently,
it is the best.
He
one.
was a Hollywood dude there. That's why he whatever. But he goes down and he meets a little couple who have a newbornish child and says, "Hey, oh, they were born, my son too, talking about the hospital." Says, man, my dad says, the nurses are amazing. This one nurse, and apparently this woman looked at my dad and said, they don't have any nurses there. I don't know if my dad, there's a lot of weird stories. Like I was conceived or something at an ashram. My dad says there was an owl or a hawk circling that was me, and all these stories. But anyway, I thought of the cosmic nurse. If this older woman popped in my room and took care of me with them, but didn't work for the hospital, who was she? I was also a 40-something hour labor. I was a forceps baby where they pulled me out with pliers.
Traumatic birth.
Came out with black eyes. I think second guessed it at the last second.
I'd like to see your natal chart. I don't know how much you know about Stanislav Grof's work and the perinatal matrices.
I would be honored to have you look at whatever you want to look at to help me unlock more of my...
Yeah, that's important what you've just said.
My parents can't decide on when I was born, and Molly tried to get the record from the hospital, and no one will give me my exact birth time. So
why?
There's even
Do they
more.
Have the information?
It's such a lot. Molly is so frustrated. She's about to lose her shit. She spent money. She's ordered passport that has the birth record, but the time's not there. My dad says, I think my dad says morning. My mom says no. It's just this whole shit storm. Apparently there was a blizzard, and it's not. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, who is this guy? Maybe I'm adopted. I don't know what's going on.
Who knows?
But I'm flowing and I feel at home right now. So that's all that matters.
Good.
So in the next, say, 15, 20, I want to bring us gently to like a closing area.
Yeah, a decline.
For
soft landing.
a part one, a soft landing. Because again, this is, for me, finding a rhythm in my life and managing myself is about the marathon mentality more.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, I used to sprint a lot. Much love and respect to Nipsey Hussle, the man of the marathon. Rest in peace. But you and I seem like, we could run and have run, and I like leaving some on the table for the future. So on that note, let's see which little prompt idea. There are so many things that you and I have to discuss, and I want to save time for us to create a song. All right, I obviously was pre-planning this. So in the name of that, can you speak about your exploration of Eros, the meaning of beauty, and how they tie into your lifelong passion of studying the nature of reality and the evolution of creative consciousness?
That's beautiful. Thank you. And that ties in, it had already just come up,
exactly.
So that makes sense. I love that you anticipated that flow. So, yeah, I think trying to consider which way I want to go with this. This is important for people to understand Eros and what it is and how it manifests and how we can work with this energy, because one of the greatest things keeping humanity stuck, I proffer, is the suppression of Eros and the exploitation, capitalization, and subjugation of women and our bodies and our sexuality and our pleasure, because it terrifies the fuck out of the patriarchy.
Terrifies me, to be honest, as a man of the patriarchy.
Well, you know what's interesting about your father's dream? He realized that the spider, it's like Ariadne, it's the temporal weaving, it's the weaving of destiny, it's the weaving of time, and the spider is a very feminine energy. And it's also devouring. It has that devouring energy, like Kali, the devouring, right? We are all born, we live, we die. We all come out of a vagina. We all come out of the womb. We all come out of the female form. And for me as a woman, it's not hard for me to relate to my mother as a sexual being because I'm a sexual being and I'm a woman. But there's something that goes on, I think, for men as they grow up. It's like then they have to separate. There comes a point where that primordial unity from which
Otherwise,
they
it's
came.
Oedipus or some.
Yeah, the Oedipus complex,
Yeah.
right? Which is Oedipus Rex is obviously the Greek tragedy by Sophocles where Oedipus kills his father and has sex with his mother, and it's his fate.
And it also reminds me of Ganesha and the Egyptian, like Isis, and the chopping off of the head, of how Ganesha was formed. His father chopped his head off, jealous of his mother. That whole thing,
Right.
the father and the son
Yeah.
and the mother,
So, well, it's also, the Madonna versus whore complex as delineated by Freud. It's like classically, the patriarchal hegemony hasn't capacitated and hasn't allowed for a woman to be a mother. And that level of purity and affection and the love between a mother and her child is one of the purest love, if not the purest love that exists. But for her also to be an erotic being who can have cascading orgasms, and that doesn't, sully her. This idea that sex is somehow sordid, the control of sex through religion, and it's okay for men to sleep with many women, it's not okay for women. Like, I don't even consider myself a feminist at this point anymore, having identified as one my whole life, because what was required from feminists to get to where we are was very necessary. But I'm at this point where, like, cosmologically, if you understand the true nature of the universe, it's not about women and men. We are one, and we both have these expressions within us. And the fact of the matter is, the female form in this incarnation is the living embodiment of Eros. It is. Carl Jung said this. Plato said this. It's been explicated by many genius thinkers, hence why people go so fucking crazy for women's bodies. I get it. I look at beautiful women, I'm like, God, just astonishing. It is so beautiful. It's something about the curves. It almost echoes a serpent, the Ouroboros, this continuation, this fractal continuation of an infinity, right? It's sinuous, it's sensual, it's receptive, it's delicious, right? Think about the Eleusinian mysteries. This is when you know about the Eleusinian mysteries.
a bit. But
Okay. Well, just for the benefit of your listeners, I'm not an expert, but Eleusis is a place in Greece, on mainland Greece. The Eleusinian mysteries is probably the most mysterious mystery school, and it went on for 2,500 years, run by high priestesses, in which the sacrament was a barley drink, which was LSD, right? Because it was the barley had the fungus ergot, which is what has, that's where LSD comes from. And basically there was a big sex rite, and there were initiates, and it was all run by women, and it was very much that deep, erotic female energy. And that's really what I want to bring forth, is the return of the feminine for leaders of this earth. It's equal leadership between men and women, and the masculine and the feminine. It's not power over, but it's understanding that the primary principle of creation is the great cosmic mother. Yeah. When you have sex and conceive a baby, this is what M theory says. There is a flash of light, which is the same as the beginning of the Big Bang inside the womb. Women literally have that intelligence inside of their bodies. So I think it's about learning some motherfucking respect for women, revering them, and all evolved men get this. They celebrate women. They love women. They're not threatened by them, right? Because they're solid in themselves, right? And I think what I would love to see occur on this planet in my lifetime is the dissolution of the patriarchy. It's like, let it go.
For sure. It's happening. And I will say, as somebody who is a stubborn son of a gun, in the name of really grokking and not bypassing steps, I think my stubbornness is actually an admirable quality where it might take me longer, but I really have to digest and chew. I consider myself to be fairly evolved, but I actually have not met a man, no matter how evolved they might be. And I am a man, so I think I get into men's minds a little more.
Yeah, of
no,
course.
meaning you may meet a man, but I might meet a man and you might meet, you know what I mean? Depending, I'm not saying, but I don't think there's any man who really is evolved and understands. I think there might be men who understand they need to understand, and they might go about acting like they need to understand, and they might go to yoni classes, they might go to burning, they might, whatever they may do, they may worship, they may this, but I'll tell you from my understanding. We're all terrified.
Yeah. What, of the great cosmic vagina?
I mean, and I think it's the grandmother of God. I think I met the grandmother of God one time. She's on a whole different level. She's terrifying, but she's amazing. But anyway.
I terrify men. I terrify them.
But you don't terrify me.
But that's awesome. But I terrify a lot.
I can imagine. No, I can imagine, because you're a force of
Yeah.
true power, you know. But what I wanted to say, without putting my beans on the, that's not an expression.
That's not a thing, but let's make it a
spill your
thing.
beans on the
the
radio.
Table, on the radio.
Beans in the radio? Okay, something like that. Magic beans. I will say that the dance of what you're describing, I have lived and continue to live. I won't get too graphic, but growing up, I write about it in season 2. You know, I had 2 experiences before 10 with 2 best friends, boys, and we didn't know, and they were, you know, exploratory sexual experiences with boys, man, as a boy. And thank God, with the people that I know and love, I was told that that's actually more normal than not, and actually almost important, because at a certain age, when I started to understand more, I was like, well, I'm not into men, which is great if whatever, but I love women.
Yeah.
And I started to have my journey, like we all do. And I actually, I wrote about it in my book, so it's okay. I had an affair with a woman my dad used to date. I used to date when I was like 17, 18, dating 40, 50-year-old women. Always liked dating older women because I felt seen by them, because I didn't feel met by younger women. I don't know. I'm an older...
Makes sense.
And then, you know, would fall in love all the time, like I said the other day. And I meant that. Like, I'd go out drinking or this and that, but I was never like, you know, hey, let's fuck. Or when I always get cringy when certain people would say too like casual, like that, like it's always about the discussion. It's always about falling in love. But then anyway, I'm trying to get through this to hit the right points, to speak to my experiential conjunctio, which is the word I said on the beach. I can't say it the right way exactly like you, but that seemed to perk your eyebrow up a little when I said it, like a secret code. My conjunctio as a man living what you're describing, at a certain point, Eros, if you will, haunted me in a beautiful way. The sirens,
exactly.
Pornography became a safe space where I could let out like whoa, this is wild, but I'm too timid to actually do 99% of any of that with anyone. I don't actually want to do that. Whereas I had friends...
It's bum out pornography.
Where I had... But I mean, to me, it's still something that occasionally I will go to. And it feels, for now, like a stalemate, a safer space than literalizing some of the instincts I have.
You mean
as
fantasies?
I navigate, sure.
Fantasy, yeah.
Whether or not that's corrupting me and it's like a poison.
It's not about judgment.
But so what I'm getting at is like, never really wanted to do the thing, and I would feel like part of me, like my soul was getting hurt, like I'm too sweet and innocent, but then a part of me was really interested in like some trippy, wild, savage sex that's not like hurt, you know, but like people being like wild.
I get it.
But then when it came, I didn't want to do that, and then eventually I'm like, I'm not going to date anymore because it's exhausting and it's causing more problems. So that tension of like, I have this part. I have an episode on season 2 coming up called Fuck Sex. And it's a play on words. It's like, man, fuck sex. Because as my dad said, you want to get to know God in 40 years, be pious, pray, be good. You want to get to know God in 5 minutes, curse God. So I'm like, fuck sex, because I do want to know sex. I'm still, now being married, you know, with Molly 8 years, I will name it, I have limited her sexuality. To some extent.
Expression.
Yeah, she's told me I've shamed her unconsciously since we met, from her maiden wild. She used to be free, like kind of being like, chill, man. Like that's not, and to the point where she's been stifled. But then I would say she's also stifled parts of me that have my language. And when I feel a certain thing and she's like, that's not my language. So we're both in this weird stalemate, but I'll take accountability for that. It wasn't conscious, but it's a damage, and it's a wound that was inflicted on me, and it's a wound that we all go through to this day. And I don't have an answer, but I will say that creativity and the kind of not sexuality, but sexual amazingness of conversation, deliciousness, like to me, that is more valuable at this point than sex for me. Masturbation, and whether it's porn or fantasy or whatever, is a safer option for me at this point. If, I'm not going to break the container with Molly regardless, no matter what. I'm not doing that. It's too valuable. Molly and I are actively working on always, and it's not like we don't have a great combination when we combine, but after the honeymoon thing and then parenting and then, whatever, you start to settle in, hopefully, into your darkness. You go through that phase, and it's hard not to become like, not siblings, but it's different. Like, it's hard to keep that.
Yeah.
And you're surviving
spice.
and you're trying to survive and you're raising a child, and it's just
Yeah.
all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And there's something about the newness that is always enticed me.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that pisses me off about like this conjunctio of like, I don't want to sleep with a lot of people. I don't. I mean, a part of me, but I don't. I've done that. It hurts me. I'm not made for that. I'm too something. It actually will drive me mad, nightmares, sadness. I don't want to be dating and drinking. I don't want to, and I don't know yet. So anyway, I'm just saying that as someone who I think is, I'm not terrified of you. I'm not terrified of women. I'm able to function in a way that's respectable. I haven't killed, respectful. I haven't killed my passion.
Thank you for your honesty. I think what's really amazing, is for me as a woman to hear you speak like this and to be having these frank and open conversations. Because part of the problem is the fear of even talking about it in the first place. And, you've just been really vulnerable in the most beautiful way. And that's such a courageous act to be vulnerable and to be honest and to grapple with our shadow and to strive to integrate it and to move forward. Sex and sexual trauma is so rife. It's so prevalent. I mean, to the majority, it's women who are being are victims on the larger global stage, but men are also victims of the patriarchy, and pornography is. I used to watch a lot of pornography, and I've had sex with a lot of people, and I've been raped, and I've had terrible experiences. I've also had amazing experiences, and I've danced with perversion. So that's what I was interested in. What you're talking about, these fantasies. And this is, again, a philosophical debate that needs to be had and explored without any judgment whatsoever. Where's the line? Where's the line? Because
between perversion or like...
Between hot, that's fucking like, that's sexy and that's hot and that's delicious and yummy and a bit kinky, but in like a way.
Yeah.
And that's actually fucked up.
Yeah.
That's a bit fucked up. Do you know what I'm saying? Because
and then
it's
what
like,
do you do with the part that might enjoy something fucked up, and
how
far does that line go?
It's the shadow. And I think I forget what this guy was called, but I remember listening to a thing. It was like on Kundalini, like yoga, a long time ago, and he said sexual perversion is a sign that something's out of alignment. It makes sense because when I was more traumatized, when I hadn't done any trauma work, I wanted and sought very extreme sexual experiences.
It's like dopamine rushes, maybe it feels. Or
also humiliation, shame, these sorts of things, very extreme, to almost exercise some. It was very, shame-based, very about sex as a power play. But reality, and anyone who doesn't understand that, needs to is not understanding life, because everything is really about sex on some degree. It's about desire. It's about eros. My theory is that the universe is fucking itself awake. I've been celibate for a year because there's no one out there that I actually want to have sex with, because I'm not really that attracted to people very easily. It takes a lot for me to really be attracted to someone. But I feel sexually satisfied to a degree because my work is so erotically fulfilling.
That's how I feel.
I'm very in my body, I do yoga, I do whatever, and for me, masturbation is literally about manifestation. I'm not thinking about sexual things. I'm like going on the stage, pyramid stage at Glastonbury, talking to 250,000 people like, this is it. Do you know what I'm saying though?
That's
it's
awesome.
like, so for me, the more elevated sexuality becomes, it's less about needing to go into role play and whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but it's more about you're reaching ecstatic, psychedelic heights. Psychedelics are very illuminating. I mean, me and my first boyfriend, I can't believe I'm saying this, is so funny. We used to take LSD and have sex for like 12 hours. And I would become this like fractal mermaid, like coming infinity. And so for me, that's where I'm moving towards. Not like, oh, do you want to pee on my face and call me your mum? Like, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's levels to it. I love that.
Good. I'm glad we cleared that up.
I really love that. And I think, I mean, there's a lot to explore in that shall be continued.
Yeah, to be continued. That's a whole podcast in itself.
But I think I will say there's a part of me that maybe I don't mind going slow in myself to be broken, which is why I started to. I was on mushrooms with my dad, and I hadn't drank in 7 years, and there was a beer in the fridge, and I remembered the reason I stopped was out of fear, and it was with a woman I was dating, and she was a ferocious drinker. Like I never. Anyway,
it was problematic at some point.
But I was scared of it, and I looked at the beer in the fridge, and I'm like, I don't want to not do something because I'm afraid of it. And so I drank a beer, and since then, like I told you yesterday, I'll have a couple beers pretty much every night, a glass of wine, whatever, because I'm a man of ritual, not because I'm an addict. I've explored it. I took a month off. I mean, once I get in my routine, I'm in a routine. I do like shifting my consciousness because it's excruciating to have the kind of level of consciousness that I've lived with up till now. I used to smoke weed every day. Not as much as a lot of my friends, a little here and there, but that was for 10 years smoking weed every day. Now I prefer a little beer in the night. My point is, I don't mind being broken for now. And there's a part of me that wants to go slow and like, before I go into the ultra balance where I am perfectly making love and all these things and everything's fine, I can feel this resistance, which maybe is a stubborn bastard who is disclaiming and wants to stay stuck. But maybe there's also this wisdom I feel inherently that wants to be very human while I'm here, take my time. I know that I am that other thing also simultaneously and have been, but I'm kind of enjoying recently my clunky, awkward shadowness, like the body weight stuff or the beer and like just going slow. I don't know. And my work is so.
I get it. You're on your journey, but you're on your journey.
Exactly.
Yeah?
I feel so good on this journey right now.
You're a work of art in progress. And I think a lot of this is about acceptance, radical acceptance of where you are in any given moment, which is not easy at all when you're not where you maybe want to be.
And then you can pass, I think. Then you can go to the next.
You've got to accept, and then that's part of it for sure.
To be continued. All right. So let's say last little flows here. We'll say, sure. We spoke a bit about a new paradigm emerging. That word is so overused that it pisses me off.
Yeah.
But when you say it, it's different. A lot of words are like that. That's what I meant about dead language. It's like, and that's why the poet has to come in, dynamite, rearrange, Frankenstein, bring it back to life. Words are alive. Paradigm, sure. When you're talking it, I'm with it. Most of the time, people saying new paradigm shift, new world coming in, I'm like, eye roll at this stage, man.
I get it.
I fucking roll. If you're not changing diapers, doing, the people I respect,
the grafters,
other than you, aren't usually talking about that. Like the real OG enlightened ones aren't all into that, like the decoration and the festivities of it. It's a very quiet, dark, simple, annoying process to bring a new paradigm into shift. Sometimes we get a podcast with pink lights and painting and music, and that's great, and I love it, and it's creative Christmas. But most of the time, it's the quiet, annoying, redundant shadow work. But we spoke about that feeling, which I agree. There's a shift. There's a new thing. The need for a manifesto, you mentioned. I agree. I've always thought of that, but I also mentioned in the same breath the dynamite and the butterfly. How do you make something that doesn't become the thing, but gives space for other things? And so the manifesto will include whatever our offsprings, backwards and forwards, ancient, future, time traveler, family, room to keep rewriting. If a Bible could be Wikipedia, what would that look like? How cool would it be if a Bible was Wikipedia in essence, meaning constantly refined, evolved, changed?
In poesis.
What does this manifesto begin to state in your eyes? Maybe a little rough draft synopsis, couple bullet points as we continue to develop it together. You, I, Zoe, AJ, anyone listening, spirits invisible. What are, just before we close this first official recorded podcast with equipment, what are some things you're going to throw into the mixing pot?
Thank you. And I agree with you that the word paradigm has become so overused at this point. It's being rendered meaningless.
Yeah.
I'm obviously using it as like a scientist and an academic. It's the most appropriate word to describe like a framework of reality upon which certain principles guide and inform all other behaviors and experiments and so on. So I use it really scientifically, but yeah, we could just say framework, structure of consciousness, whatever. And it's hard work, and it's not wearing a poncho in Tulum, which is fine, but that's just not what it is. So with regards to this shift though, and this manifesto, again, it's not about like codifying something to the point where it's petrified or it ossifies. But I do at the same time think we will only change this motherfucking world, yeah, because we're on the precipice of ecological catastrophe, and I think that's what people need to understand. And obviously there's a lot of people talking about climate change and not really looking at the root cause of climate change. So that's what this is about. It's about saying, okay, why are all these problems occurring? Sex trafficking, climate change, deforestation, poverty, racism, whatever, all the shit. Why is it happening? It's one problem. There's one problem, and it's a sickness of mind. Now, here's the thing. When you understand mind, when you understand the nature of mind and what it is, it necessitates the evolution of mind itself. So it performs that which it is speaking to.
Like a virus?
No, it's more that to understand what mind is, what consciousness is, and it is the biggest mystery to mainstream science is consciousness, hence why David Chalmers calls it the hard problem. It's the biggest mystery. It's the one thing they cannot account for, answer, explain. They can't explain why anything exists, why the Big Bang happened, why life started, and why we are conscious. They can't explain it, right? And to understand it necessitates you break out of this reductionist, limited paradigm, because it's done. It's done. This is a mental, video game, holographic, ludic, aesthetic universe in which we are all creative participants. So this manifesto, this movement, it's about presenting this in a way that people understand, and then they can participate in it. How? Through art, through creation, through beauty, through, this is what's not going on, which I hope with humility, hope to participate in instigating, is the unification of the idea of a new paradigm, what it is, what it could look like, to encourage people to imagine, evokes John Lennon's song, Imagine, right? Imagine all the people. Yeah. At the end, what does he say? Some say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. Yeah. It's about getting all the ones who dare to dream of a different reality and presenting a quote unquote manifesto, some sort of rubric, some sort of articulation of this, so people can who don't have the access to the academic information I have, to say, this is what's going on, guys, become part of it. And I want to call it Kairos for reasons already outlined.
So since a young child, I was heartbroken by all of the things that you mentioned when I had my Siddhartha moment of coming out of the joy and the, not that I was like immune to pain. I was a forceps baby. I had colic horribly. I had all, a lot of whatever. But overall, my joy bubble of love and fairy tales was nurtured and fostered until it popped officially, as it had been stabbed a bunch, of course, since the beginning, but then it popped. And I remember being like, wow, I'm either going to kill myself, which I also try. I used to carve things in my arm, put cigarettes out on my arm.
Yeah.
I carved "fuck the world" in my arm with a compass point in class, looking at the girl that I had a crush on, like some emo.
Yeah, that's intense.
Starved myself, all these different things. But the unheard song whispered very strong and still does for me, so it kept me going. A lot of suicide in my family too. But so I said, okay, September 11th, first day of high school, people racing all over the place, good catch, AJ. Racing all over the place. That was like me in my life. It was about to drop. I caught it, or spirit caught me. Anyway, I analyzed the problem thoroughly, and I said I could go here. I could do, the UN wanted me to sing this song I wrote called Political Slang. I could go, how am I going to add to this while I'm here if I'm going to participate in what we're talking about? And I said, okay, what's the one thing art? What's the one thing that you get young people from the beginning to imagine, to coax out, whether you're a scientist, whether you're going to help with the logistics of the global climate, whether you're going to be figuring out mathematical equations, chefs? What's the one thing? It's creativity from the beginning. And so that's why I chose creativity, because to me, that's the clearest route to unlock all of the potential. So you saying that, I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I heard glimmers of that in what you were saying. Unlocking the innate poetry inside of every human, unlocking the destiny seed unique to every human. The snowflake is through an acknowledgement that creativity is the lifeblood, which is why Hollywood or the record industry felt like the Goliath that I was here to kill.
Yeah.
And was like even more, like we all have our triggers, right? Like certain people might get really like our points. Mine is like shameless, mindless pumping out of content and films and music and video games that is clearly like psychotic and feeding into
trying to keep us stuck, though. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they, and who the fuck is they?
Well, precisely.
They is another
Whoever
me.
They are.
They is another me that may have gotten stuck in a different dimension or something. There's some truce that needs to happen. There's no they, there's no me. There's us. There's that. And so I think that's the merging of the dwarves and the giants and the fairies, and it's coming together now. Like if we don't collaborate, everything will die, which actually I think is totally okay because we're infinite. But it would be kind of annoying because this experiment has been a lot of work's gone into this. Do we really want to have to start this one again? Let's try to. Anyway, that's the last thing I'm going to say as far as thoughts go. Please add whatever you would like to that. I also like cliffhangers. I also would love for you to share with the world anything you want them to know about you or your work in addition, or how they can listen to your podcast, support you, follow you.
Okay.
Same with Zoe. Whatever. Or just leave cliffhangers and we just let them follow the breadcrumbs.
I'm just looking up a quote from Terence McKenna. And sorry, just give me one moment, because I really want to read this quote is like everything.
I want to borrow the mystics and swimming in the madness in that quote before you go.
Yeah, I'll give that to you, Joseph
Please.
Campbell. I want to read this quote and then I'll tell the listeners how they can access my content.
Please.
Okay, this is Terence McKenna. The artist's task is to save the soul of mankind, and anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. Because of the artists who are self-selected for being able to journey into the other, if the artists cannot find the way, then the way cannot be found. So I think that sums it up, what we were saying.
That's the manifesto right there, or that's quoted in the manifesto.
That's it, but that therein lies the nub, right? That's the crux of it. And just to finish, well, actually, I also want to say, if anyone's listening to this and they're struggling, hold on, because you and I have gotten through, yeah? So they just hold on and you trust in your journey. And with regards to me and what I'm up to, yes, I have a podcast. It's not consistent or active right now because of my PhD demands, but it is called Sacred Wisdom. As I'm building a team, which is very much what's coming together for me in my life, I will be releasing that more consistently. But you can find that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, it's on there, or go onto my website, which is www.arabellathais.com. I'm sure you'll put all this info in the notes. Of course. But really exciting news is that I'm launching a school of consciousness called The Temple, which is based on, Pythagoras, on classical Greece, on the mysteries, also ancient Egypt, but as well as providing cutting edge research from the forefront of mathematics, cosmology, quantum mechanics, aesthetics, all the stuff we spoke about. And so really merging these things in a way that's very applicable for people's lives. So the first course I'm launching is called The Doors of Destiny. I'm here to help architect the new earth and find the people who are doing the same, and help people live a life beyond their wildest dreams, have limitless abundance, but also be contributing to the wider cosmic context of evolution and harmonic resonance upon earth, right? So that's what the intention is. It's very priestess vibes. It's very alien, future, delicious, erotic. I'm also doing a high priestess training called Cosmic Nectar. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of really good offerings at different price points for people who can learn with me directly and do it online, DIY, all sorts.
And then we're starting a show.
Yeah, in time.
No, I'm just playing.
So, do you know what? If you have the right team around you, anything's possible.
That's what we're building. Molly and I got some
Yeah.
things in the shadows, a lot of things happening. So to be continued, it's such an honor. Zoe Rose, thank you for combining.
Wow, what a treat
Look.
to listen.
Do you want to hop on the mic and say
I think she should.
just for like 2 minutes?
No, I
anything?
think she should.
That'd be lovely. Yeah. Zoe.
All right, hello.
Hello. So we have
Thank
Zoe Rose
you.
here, who has been painting a magnificent piece, which you can
Wow.
see if you're listening to this, through our pages. What was that like for you?
Well, there was just a lot of beautiful words and just richness of just everything that I believe in as well. I feel like she's just such an inspiration for me to be around and see her so in her power and like have like you said, the force. It's like this powerful, powerful force, this leader of this, next wave of awakening consciousness. And just to be around it, we just have such a beautiful dynamic, So getting to hear her words every time, it just hits me so deeply in my heart. And like, I'm just so proud of her. And it's just the beginning of things. And everything that, she's researching about in beauty and Eros, it's all the ethos of us, me and her and our relationship and dynamic. And yeah, it just feels good.
There's something I wrote in the intro at the end where I said something like, Zoe, take the brush, basically forget the pen, forget my attempt to describe things right now. We're going to have a better chance through your painting than trying to get closer to the shadow friend. And I just, Arabella, you are truly one of the most clear, eloquent forces of being able to use words and tone of voice and your presence to communicate spirit, soul, magic, sparks. And that's rare. But I still always feel, because I'm more of a talker, I guess, singer, that it's the quieter ones that really are saying the most. So I just want to say, I really think Zoe, if you guys can figure out an interdimensional way to listen to the podcast that Zoe recorded in here without words, that one has more gems on it, I would suspect.
Yeah. And it was, it's just a flow. Again, I think a lot of my art is like what you said, it's a dance, you have to be present for it and you have to be with it. And, but I do know there's a struggle with, finding the vision of what you're creating, and I think it takes time though to develop, and we're all on our own journeys and our own paths. And I think it's important to know that wherever you are is where you are. And I know a lot of things are going to be revealed to me as I continue on my journey. And it's nice looking up to Arabella because I see, she's a lot more evolved in where she's at, and she knows things that, she deeply knows them. And I know they're there inside of me, but it's like allowing them to just come in their own time. And for now, just take the creativity and run with that and really push it to higher limits. And, the more I'm around her, the more my consciousness opens, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so excited for those like seeds that she plants, and I'm sure she's planting in all these people that are listening.
And me.
And you, yeah,
me.
like everyone. I'm
Zoe
like,
paints codes.
yeah, well, yeah.
She'll be able to, I know I'm not on the microphone, but she depicts things that I can't say in words.
Yeah.
But it's this synthesis between what I'm saying and academically.
And that's the
researching.
experiment of this podcast, this show.
But look at what the hell's going on here, dude?
Wait till we bring in Kevin. Kevin crafted a song for us last night that he emailed that I've resisted listening to, that we're about to turn on and sing a little bit. So adding codes. But Zoe, to be continued, would love to have you on the show anytime.
Yes.
Would love to make this I don't know, maybe once a year we could do a special. I feel like this kind of conversation, in the way the three of us have flown, and AJ, is worth being like a chaptered, ongoing portal that we explore. So very grateful.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone who's listening. Love y'all. You already know, to be continued. Mad love.
Thank you for listening to the Pink Hearse Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram @ChannelTheSun and contribute to the cause at patreon.com/ChannelTheSun for ever-evolving bonus material. We ask our listeners to subscribe to our podcast for new episode alerts and to leave comments and reviews through your podcast platform. We are an independent operation creating art from the heart, and your support means the world to us. I'm Prospect Lux, executive producer. Thanks for listening and keep on growing.